It's kind of a melting pot of influences. And does it bother me if someone says, this sort of reminds me of the Zombies or the Beatles or the Byrds or something? Well, the music that really made the biggest impression on me in the early 60s, mid-60s was the Beatles and the Byrds. I remember having all the records. And, I like the sound of the band, and, and there's a that kind of thing.
Everywhere I look, you are. Everywhere I look, you are.
It's a tip of the hat to those great songs. They were hits. People liked them. They were catchy. They were melodic. They were musical. So that's what we wanted these songs, the kind of shape they took, that's what we wanted them to get across, using the old Vox amps and the old Fender amps. And there's a Rickenbacker 12-string from the mid-60s, and they're, using old tube mics, like this is the idea.
Tell me who's that riding, John the Revelator. Tell me who's that riding, John the Revelator. Tell me who's that riding, John the Revelator. Wrote the book of the seven seas.
Acknowledged as one of the greatest guitar players in the world, Phil Keaggy's 15th solo release, Crimson and Blue, brings his 60s influences of Cream, Blind Faith, the Beatles, the Byrds, the Zombies, and more into a 90s setting that is unmistakably and uniquely classic Keaggy. Crimson represents the blood of Christ and is characterized by Crimson and Blue's ballads and pop rock songs, while Blue represents the condition of fallen man and is characterized musically by the project's harder rock and blues rock songs. Welcome to the Crimson Special. I'm John Rivers. Over the next hour, we'll hear many of the songs that make up the Crimson segment of Crimson and Blue.
Well, you see, the idea for this album wasn't Crimson and Blue. The idea of this album was to kind of do an album that would represent really what Glass Harp was kind of about, and which is why I invited John to come down to be a part of this. John Safara, who is one of my favorite drummers of all time, and we were friends since 8th grade. We go way back. John, we kept in touch over the years, and the last album he and I actually recorded on together was 1972, a Decca release called It Makes Me Glad. And but we remained friends over the years, and we actually did I think a couple or a few Glass Harp reunions. But see, the original idea for this album was we're going to go in there, we're going to come up with kind of Cream, Blind Faith, James Gang, Glass Harp, hookish things, guitar riffs with vocals over them, like how Sunshine of Your Love was, or like which was, a Blind Faith song. And so one of the first songs in mind for this new album was the song Don't Pass Me By. And that song, I said to Lynn, Lynn, got to have John on this song. So we say, hey John, could you come down to Nashville? We're going to get together, jam, just hang out together, be together, become reacquainted with the idea of going into the studio.
And Phil recalls.
What I wanted out of this album, I want to give the people an album that is those kind of songs all the way through. I had no intentions of even having a ballad on this album. I wanted it to be a Clapton, Joe Walsh, bit of Keaggy in there. I wanted it to be that kind of a thing, real rootsy R&B, electric English, hooky things, primarily bass, drums, and guitar, 3-piece. So the idea originally was to go in and make a bluesy, rhythm and bluesy, rock, 3-piece kind of album. So then, John came down and we invited a few different bass players over, and down in my basement, I had John and I, and then we had Rick Kua come by, and we had Danny O'Lanerty come by, and then somebody else came by, and then finally we invited Wade James, and all these guys are great bass players. But Wade James and John made a real musical connection. And of course, John and I connect. And through John, Wade and I were really connecting. And this is what made Glass Harp, Glass Harp. John and I had this thing going. John and Dan, the bass player, had that thing going. And all of a sudden there was this connection that worked and eventually became a circle, you know, of energy. And I don't mean to get spacey on you folks, but that's how it happens, you know. That's what makes music work. I've done Beyond Nature, and I had the ballads in some of the other albums and stuff. There is definitely this gentle side to what I do, which I like. It's a part of my nature, it's a part of my personality. But I know there's also a side to me that there are old fans who say, now, why doesn't Phil just play like he used to? Like when I saw him live or something, and he just really kicked out the jams, you know. But the thing is, all of a sudden, in the midst of making these rock songs, I wrote a song called Reunion of Friends, which is a light fare song, you know, kind of it's kind of light, it's kind of whimsical, it's kind of Beatlish. And I wrote it out of a real experience of reconciliation between one of my members of my own family. And it's just a song of rejoicing, combining that with the idea that John's coming down and we're playing together for the first time in many years. And Lynn and Phil, everybody involved in this project, and including my family, you know. It's a reunion of friends. The idea of Crimson and Blue was Mark Maxwell's idea. He came up with the title for the album. And he thought of dividing the album up between the songs that were more perhaps commercial, more accessible, and then the latter part of the album being the more edgy songs, rock songs with the jams and things. Although this is a Phil Keaggy album, it really is a band effort. I must acknowledge everyone who participated in this album. From Lynn Nichols being the producer and co-writer, and he sang, just because we just didn't get a lot of people in there singing, he and I did most of the singing. We got Philly in there, Madeira, we got Ashley Cleveland in there, and I think we even got Jimmy A and Mike Mead on backgrounds in one little song someplace. But the band, John Sfera, Wade, and Philly, and myself primarily are the group and of musicians on this. It's really a band effort, just like Glass Harp was a band effort. In the song Everywhere I Look, you were mentioning, it's kind of a melting pot of influences. And does it bother me if someone says, this sort of reminds me of maybe the Zombies or the Beatles or the Byrds or something? Well, the music that really made the biggest impression on me in the early 60s, mid-60s was the Beatles and the Byrds. I remember having all the records, and I like the sound of the band and the Zombies, the actual sound of the record we were commenting about. So the original song demo was really different than the way this actually ended up. We thought of that drum beat in My Life, you know, you know, or time. It's the time of the season, you know, and there's a, you know, that kind of thing, the breath thing, and all that stuff. It's a tip of the hat to those great songs. They were hits. You know, people liked them. You know, they were catchy, they were melodic, they were musical. And that's what we wanted these songs, the kind of shape they took, that's what we wanted them to get across, using the old Vox amps and the old Fender amps. And there's a Rickenbacker 12-string from the mid-60s, and they're, you know, using old tube mics, you know. But I consider it a compliment if someone says, hey, that's kind of Beatlish, because they were a big influence, and you know, I think there's some things where we take it even further outside of that sort of thing. And in some things we thought, yeah, let's just kind of do it that way.
Far beyond what eyes behold, there are places faces yet to be discovered, stories as of yet untold, till our faces have become uncovered. Everywhere I look you are, deep and wide, near and far, out beyond the farthest star. Even then, there you are. Hidden deep within my heart, there are secrets yet to see the daylight. Unseen in the fallen dark, you are present even in my midnight. Everywhere I look you are, deep and wide, near and far, out beyond the farthest star. Even then, there you are. Everywhere I look you are, deep and wide, near and far, out beyond the furthest star. Even then, there you are. Everywhere I look you are, everywhere I look you are, deep and wide, near and far, out beyond the furthest star. Even then, there you are. Everywhere I look you are, deep and wide, near and far, out beyond the furthest star. Even then, there you are. Everywhere I look you are, deep and wide, near and far, out beyond the furthest star. Even then, there you are. Everywhere I look you are.
Phil Keaggy and Crimson, the radio special, will return. While some search for power, some for fame and fortune, and some for love and money, Brian Duncan finds love and mercy.
Comes to love, I'd do most anything.
Just when we thought we had him figured out, Brian Duncan takes one more step.
I'm starting over for the rest of my life.
Mercy.
To my heart, out of my head. Sometimes they're just so far apart. Can you bury your pride? Could you ever forgive me and not keep it inside?
Contemporary Christian music
Takes time.
may never be the same. His new album, Mercy. Brian Duncan and Mercy from Myrrh. One of the most heartfelt and musically fun songs on Phil Keaggy's Myrrh album, Crimson and Blue, is the song Reunion of Friends. Phil explains how this song came out of a painful, then joyful personal experience.
Reunion of Friends was specifically written to my sister Jerry and her husband Greg and their family. Jerry and I, as I sung about it in a song called My Life a long time ago, we were the two youngest of 10 children, and we grew up as best friends and very close. In fact, we went through our high school years together, and we met the Lord on the same day in February of 1970. And Jerry got married in 1973, just a few months before Bernadette and I got married in 1973. So there was this parallel in our lives, and there's a lot of amazing similarities between us. I mean, you can definitely tell we're brother and sister. We're both smaller of stature, and we have very similar family features. Even when I hear myself speak on tape, it reminds me of her so often. We have a very similar style of speech. So we're very much alike in a lot of ways. And so when the differences grew between us over how we live our Christian lives, that difference and those distances created by that difference were very acutely felt on both sides, her side and my side. And prayers were answered. And, you know, we came to a commonness again, we came to a peace and reconciliation, put aside our differences, and the joy as a result of that, the love, the forgiveness is wonderful. In fact, we've written a song together since then that's other than, you know, the Reunion of Friends song, which was my expression, very simply put, that we can recapture the years that slipped away. We can relive the memories still. We can talk about our childhood. We could talk about our parents. And we could talk about the times we laughed, you know, the times we cried. It's a celebration, which is what it really comes down to.
Look at you, look at me, together once again. This is a day to celebrate, reunion of friends. Time to dance, time to sing, time to join our hands. This is a day to celebrate, reunion of friends. We can recapture the years that slipped away. We can relive all the memories still. So don't you be sad, for our prayers have been answered today. It's time to celebrate. See you smile, see you laugh, blessed with innocence. This is the day to celebrate, reunion of friends. We can recapture the years that slipped away. We can relive all the memories still. So don't you be sad, for our prayers have been answered today. It's time to celebrate.
wrote that song, finished it, called Lynn up about 1 o'clock in the morning and said, Lynn, I just wrote this song. You want to listen to it? So I put the phone up in front of the speakers and played it for him. Yeah, I like that. That sounds like a good candidate for the album, you know? And I said, yeah. And you know, I'm kind of thinking about something here. It'd be great to write a song that had a bit more of this sort of flavor. I said, wouldn't it be great to write a song that felt like All My Lovin' from the early Beatles? He goes, yeah, you oughta. Call it Love Divine. I sat down. I didn't even want to plug an amp in when I did the demo. There was a guitar nearby, and I just got a cord. I plugged it in the back of the 8-track. Plugged the drum machine, and I spent a bit of time programming what the drums should sound like, you know. And I wanted it to have that kind of a swing thing, you know. And what am I going to say, you know? Never knew such a love could be found. It's so amazing. It's been said so many times in so many ways. It's not a critical song in the album. It's a light song. It could be taken as just a bit of fun, you know. But I guess what it comes down to is there's a difference between human love and agape love. Human love has its limitations. In fact, human love is selfish. Affection and romance and friendship and family, you know, love, all these things, they're limited because of our humanness. God's love is unselfish, it's unconditional, and when God's love, divine love, agape love, invade our lives, it brings the other loves in our life to fulfillment, makes them richer, makes them more complete. God showed His love to us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Unconditional love, that we're not worthy of this kind of love, but He wants to give it to us. He wants us to be partakers of this love of His. Love divine, I hold you in the center of my heart. Love divine, you made me see that I could have a part in this mystery. Eternity will prove that from the start, that you gave me all your love. Love divine.
Never knew such a love could be found. It's so amazing. I can taste, I can feel, I can see, for I am facing love divine. You are mine. Let the world go walk on by. Here I'll stay. Let it rain. Let it fall on me again. Human words can't describe, can't define what's come upon me. I attempt to make sounds, for the whole thing is just beyond me. Love divine, you are mine. You have found me just in time. You are mine, all in all. Love divine, love divine. I hold you in the center of my heart. Love divine.
Some say it's only an illusion. Others call it the most powerful force on earth. Phil Driscoll calls it the power of true love.
Well, if you know you really need your love,
The picture changes.
we gotta have a little talk about it.
The new release from Phil Driscoll.
Got so far to go.
Grammy Award winner Phil Driscoll returns with his best album yet. The picture changes.
Power of love is setting me free.
Stirring pop vocals
Love I will cherish.
from a classic Christian artist.
Love you put in this so hard of mine.
Phil Driscoll. The picture changes. Now available everywhere on Word cassettes and compact discs.
Welcome back to Phil Keaggy's Crimson Radio Special, featuring songs from Phil's new Myrrh release, Crimson and Blue. Of the song I Will Be There, Phil explains that we can never be told too often that God really does love us, and that no matter what we do or where we go, He will be with us.
When you love somebody, and you know that the word love is going around all over the place, people are using it for this reason and for that reason. But when, for instance, when I say to Bernadette, honey, today I love you today, I love you. And she tells me she loves me, or my kids tell me they love me, or a friend of mine tells me, hey, I love you, man, you know. No, I really do. I mean, I love you. It means something. It's personal. It's personal. And to know that we can hear through somebody that God says, I will be there when you cry, when you need me, when you fall. I'll be there all the time. I'm there for you. I love you. It means so much. That reassurance is important. And as you know, how many songs say, I will be there, I'll be here, I'll be anywhere, you know. And how many times is it said? It's said over and over again, but we need to hear it. We need that assurance.
I will be there when you cry. I will be there when you need me. I will be there when you fall. I will be there all the time. All the time.
Phil Keaggy talks about the song World of Mine from his Myrrh release, Crimson and Blue.
I've always thought of my singing as something that just, I wish I would have had a wider and taller body, and it could have come out with just a bit more oomph, you know? And so I think there's some places on here where it comes out a bit more like that. I'm singing lower, World of Mine, I sing lower on that song than any song I've ever written. Everybody wants to know exactly how it feels to be in this place. Well, I don't know. I've been wondering myself. You know, of course, that was all on the spot. That was spontaneous. That bit on the demo, I just started rattling things off the top of my head, you know, and I kept it, you know. Nothing was ever penned out first on that one. Everybody wants to know exactly how it feels to be in this place. Well, I don't know. I've been wondering myself. Every time I go, every time I go, every time I go, every time I go. I wanna tell you about everything I've seen. I wanna tell you about every place I've been. I haven't even known what it means to walk in these shoes of mine. Standing on the corner, watching as the world goes by. Sometimes I connect and sometimes I reflect and cry. I see myself in a wounded heart, all by myself in a crowded bar, to find a flicker in this falling dark world of mine. For a moment you seem like strangers, exchange a few words, and suddenly you share the same heartbeat. They look deep into your eyes and they ask, does God hear me anymore? And why have I been denied? You wanna tell me about every broken dream. You wanna tell me about all the pain you've seen. You say you haven't even known what it means to walk in these shoes of mine. But I'm trying, standing on the corner, watching as the world goes by. Sometimes I connect and sometimes I reflect and cry, to see myself in a wounded heart and be of help if I can do my part, to be a flicker in this falling dark world of mine.
some search for power, some for fame and fortune, and some for love and money. Brian Duncan finds love and mercy.
Comes to love, I'd do most anything.
Just when we thought we had him figured out, Brian Duncan takes one more step.
I'm starting over for the rest of my life.
Mercy.
To my heart, out of my head. Sounds that just so far apart. Can you bury your pride? Could you ever forgive me and not keep it inside?
Contemporary Christian music may never be the same. His new album, Mercy. Brian Duncan and Mercy from Myrrh. Welcome back to Phil Keaggy's Crimson Radio Special, featuring songs from Phil's Myrrh release, Crimson and Blue. I have interviewed Phil many times over the past few years, and I was struck as we talked in Nashville late one afternoon that Phil was at peace. He was at peace with his album, Crimson and Blue, at peace with his life, and content with his relationship with the Lord.
We're into our 4th year living in Nashville. Bernadette, Alicia, Olivia, and Ian. And we really love living in Tennessee. It's a great state. It's a beautiful state. We've made good friends here. We're part of a really good church. And I'm just really looking to this being a place where we can really settle our roots deep into the earth and into our spiritual life here and our walk here. And one of the reasons why I did move here was because some of my oldest friends live here. And I never did entirely feel at home too far away from Ohio anyway. So this is not Ohio, but it's close. I love the seasons, the change of the seasons. I enjoy the rain. I don't complain when it rains. I like the rain. Of course, I'm not inviting floods. I don't want any floods, but I wish it would snow more, you know. So there's people up in Chicago and Boston saying, hey, you can have it. You can have it. But it's kind of a new time in my life, concentrating on trying to grow in the Lord more and really locking into the things that are important. Being a father who's home and present with my children, involved with them, means a lot to me and them, to be involved with the things that matter to them. That's why I'm not an ambitious touring musician. I love to be home with them, maybe helping them on their projects or something. Like this morning, Ian and I went shooting off model rockets, this morning before school. He was a bit late for school as a result of it, but we had a good time. These are the kind of memories you never forget. I mean, I remember things, doing things with my father and my brothers. You just don't forget them. They're part of they're building blocks. But the thing that is most important is that somehow I can leave an impression of Christ on the lives of my children as a father. And that they see the love that Bernadette and I have for each other as an example for marriage for them in their years to come. So, to me, learning what it means to be able to grow and to be useful to God, giving my utmost for His highest, and yet I'm continually challenged, and I want to walk in God's grace, but I don't want to take His grace for granted.
The sun was setting over Avalon. The last time we stood in the west, suffering long time, angels enraptured by play, burn out the dross, innocence captured again. standing on the beach at sunset. And all the boats keep moving slow in the glory of the flashing light, in the evening's glow. When will I ever learn to live in God? When will I ever learn? He gives me everything I need and more. When will I ever learn? You brought it to my attention that everything was made in God. Down through centuries of great writings and paintings, everything was in God. Seen through architecture of great cathedrals, down through the history of time, is and was in the beginning, and evermore shall ever be. When will I ever learn to live in God? When will I ever learn? He gives me everything I need and more. Will I ever learn? Whatever it takes to fulfill His mission, that is the way we must go. But you gotta do it your way. Tear down the old and bring up the new. Up on the hillside it's quiet, where the shepherd is tending his sheep. And over the mountains and the valleys, and the countryside is so green. Standing on the highest hill with a sense of wonder, you can see everything was made in God. Head back down the roadside and give thanks for it all. When will I ever learn to live in God? When will I ever learn? 'Cause He gives me everything I need and more. When will I ever learn? When will I ever learn to live in God? When will I ever learn? He gives me everything I need and more. When will I ever learn? Hey, He gives me everything I need and
I think in my music I want to continually instill hope in people to look heavenward in their lives, in their families. I don't really want to be dishing out simplistic answers for people's everyday problems. You can't really do that with music. That's not what I want my music to do. But to me, music is a viable form of communication, of communicating something spiritual, something of value. I think music is a legitimate form of entertainment, you know. And you know, the word entertainment says to me something that holds your attention, you know. But I'd like to keep communicating life and hope and a sense of our relationship with God Almighty, the all-powerful, supreme being that we can't see. He's invisible. And yet, we have a true picture of who He is through the person of Jesus Christ and the life that He lived.
What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is that flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
Phil Keaggy from his Myrrh release, Crimson and Blue. This has been Phil Keaggy's Crimson Radio Special. I'm your host, John Rivers. Our executive producer has been Brad Burkhart. This program is produced at River Riders Ranch in Forestburg, Texas for Myrrh Records.
Some say it's only an illusion. Others call it the most powerful force on earth. Phil Driscoll calls it the power of true love.
Well, if you know you really need your love,
The picture changes.
we gotta have a little talk about
The new release from Phil Driscoll.
Not so far to go.
Grammy Award winner Phil Driscoll returns with his best album yet. The picture changes.
Power of love is setting you free.
Stirring pop vocals
This love will cherish.
from a classic Christian artist.
Love you put in this soul heart of mine.
Phil Driscoll, The Picture Changes. Now available everywhere on Word cassettes and compact discs.